Hey famous warrior, welcome back to our channel. Today I have the amazing honor of having with me Dexter Fundanga, aka Destro. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Destro is in the house. I'm sure you will know when he says the first sentence what his gift is. But yeah, I have the honor of not just speaking to him but catching up with him today, and I am so grateful that you are here, that you've made the time to come and share your story with us, and I can't wait to get into it.
Word. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Nice.
Yes.
So in true famous warrior fashion, let's get started by you sharing some fun facts about yourself. So tell us about yourself in 5 sentences only.
Okay. I am a left-handed rapper, spoken word poet,
Okay.
voiceover artist, and writer.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Family
that was 5
wise,
things.
yeah, no, like, okay, now give us a bit extra.
No,
Go
a
a
bit,
bit
a
deeper.
bit extra,
Go a bit deeper.
Okay. I am the only child between my parents. They're both late. Yeah, I think I was orphaned early. My dad died when I was 6. My mom died when I was 18. That was like, what, 2012? It seems like a long time now, but yeah. And right after that, God saved me. And I discovered that I could do all these other things. But I'm very close to my family on both sides.
Yeah.
On both sides, they've been the parents that I thought I lost.
Yeah.
You know, they've always been there for me, and I do my best to be there for them as well. Yeah.
Nice. Tell us about wifey.
Wifey, yeah, we go a long way.
I know.
I met my wife in 2013, late 2013. Shortly after, I also started serving. We were still Jam World at the time.
Yes, so I'd like to
We're
take a little
still
bit of
Jam
credit
World
for,
at the time.
introducing the two of you, creating an environment for you to meet.
Thank you very much. You see, God was using you, but you didn't know that God was using
Yes.
you. But here we are today. We're
Yes.
married. We just clocked a year on Monday. So we're a year into marriage, but we've known each other 11 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Serving together.
Yeah, pretty much. We've been doing life for a long time. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into the meat of our conversation today, which is finding your voice as a believer, right? So you have the interesting and unique perspective of this topic, because not only have you gone through life to find your voice as a believer, but now you use your voice to share your message, to share other people's message, to amplify whatever it is on your heart that you feel you want to share with the world. So you've just mentioned, and I didn't even know this about you, that you lost your parents when you were young. So you shared that you lost your dad when you were
About 6.
So in an industry where there is a lack of strong male role models, and the industry then being in a society where that's the fact as well, and you being in a society where in your family that was your reality because you lost your dad young, how did you navigate finding your own voice, not necessarily discovering that you had the talent of this voice that could have this impact on other people, but just finding your own voice as a person? Tell us about that. Did you struggle as a child with like low self-esteem, or situations where you should have spoken out but you didn't? Or tell us about that story and how you kind of found your way in that regard.
So to start with, finding my voice as a young man, I remember we used to have like these construction workers growing up who were like, they were working on something. They were doing some renovations, and they would leave like lots of wires behind and so forth. So being a creative, even from a young age, I would pick those wires up and make like little men, and then I would voice all of those characters. I was an only child, so half the time I was left alone to my own devices, which was good and bad, because I discovered certain things and I learned certain things. I had no one to play with, so I used to play with those wiremen. So eventually you find the construction workers also took interest. They're like, this kid's always alone. So I remember one of them almost influenced me to start smoking. Now I'm 6 at the time, so I'm like, this is very strange. He's smoking out of a newspaper. I don't think that works for me. I remember taking one puff and I was like, never again. Never again. But I was a child, so obviously, as you grow older, you might be like, let me try that again. But because God decided to save me, I haven't tried to touch that kind of lifestyle. It's never been for me. You know that there are certain things that even as you grow, you're just like, that's not for me. Even before you get saved, it's like God preserves you before the fact and even after the fact. Once he now gives you the real freedom, you're like, oh, okay, now I do have the real freedom to choose. I choose not to, you know, just for the sake of preservation. But those were like moments in which I felt like I was finding my voice, because I was so intrigued and enamored with characters. You know, I discovered at a very young age that I could play different characters. Sometimes I would even attempt to like pitch my voice if I've made like a female wire, you know, and stuff like that. It was I would say I had a very interesting childhood, despite experiencing tragedy at the time, you know, losing my dad. And I remember asking my mom, I think this is something a lot of parents struggle with, explaining death to their kids. I remember my mother was crying, my late mother was crying, and I went to ask her, why are you crying, and why is dad in a box, you know, because I didn't know what that was. Why is he in a box and everything? And I remember she just went like, no, he's gone to be with his dad, you know. And I remember saying, am I also going to be with him and his dad?
Wow.
And she was like, not now, not today, hopefully not today. And you know, I think that like inspired more tears. But I had an interesting mind, really. So moving along, wiremen not only helped me buy time being on my lonesome, they also became an escape. I remember I would go to school and I couldn't wait to get back home and play with my wiremen, because that's where I felt like I could express myself. In class I was so indifferent. I was bullied, you know, because I was always the quiet one. Why is he so quiet, you know? So kids are always intrigued. Why is he so quiet? Why does he dress different? We all have uniforms. A little known fact, we couldn't afford the uniform at the time. I was going to Sunshine School. I remember this very vividly, and one of the kids came to bully me, and he was like, why don't you wear the uniform? And so on. Long story short, we all know how bullying goes. It wasn't a pleasant experience, and I couldn't speak up against it. And I remember my mother decided, you know what, you are so lively at home, but it's like you enter a shell around people, but I understand it's because you're always alone. I'll start putting you deliberately in spaces where you're with like other kids and you're learning something. So she started taking me to self-defense classes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started learning karate at the age of 6 also. So between 6 and 12, I had gone up certain ranks, and by the time I was 12, I became more outspoken. Now the outspokenness came from knowing that I will mess someone up if they try something.
So it was corrupted.
Yeah, I was corrupted in a way.
Yes.
But also it gave me a very interesting perspective in that I realized how much I could do. And I remember my sensei at the time always used to say, because of what you know, you only use it to defend yourself. If you use it to attack people, then you're misusing power. And I was like, okay, interesting. So I've always been cool, calm, and collected, but just don't touch me the wrong way. You might kiss the ground. I'm just saying. So so that's how I would say I started finding my voice and knowing what power it could hold then, because I feel like there's so many ways we speak, even without speaking from like our mouths. You know, the character speaks for itself. The actions speak louder than words, as they say. You know, so I would say I started finding my voice also in that way, defining character. So as a teenager, you know, you're navigating these spaces of being a teenager. You start noticing girls. You start realizing that, oh, reading actually makes me smarter, and so on and so forth. You start to more or less ebb and flow. You because of the background of, say, the martial arts. I started to dig deeper into a lot of like the meditations. Mind you, I wasn't yet saved at this point. I wasn't yet saved. I started to dig deeper into the meditations, and I think I had reached a point where I would fairly say I was lost, you know, because the meditations, they do stuff to you. They make you more receptive to everything around you, but also there's just certain spirits that you engage with in those states, you know. I remember vividly undergoing a trance of sorts, where I had an outer body experience, seeing myself, and then when I was put back into my body, I literally felt like I was coming down, you know. So I was like, wait, did I levitate? I wondered for so many years, but eventually when I got saved, my mentor told me, just stop with the meditations. Don't do that. That's you regulating demons. You know, but also because I was cool, calm, and collected, I didn't realize that I had a bit of like a temper issue. So there were certain things like which I considered injustices that ticked me off. So I was very quick to act on that, and I would justify it as, well, it's defense. Those people couldn't defend themselves. Here I am. So it developed a bit of like a hero complex, but it was very much stemmed in pride. For most of it, you know, when you look back now, you're like, yeah, that was out of pride. It wasn't. There was no need for you to act that way. So, yeah, I would say I started finding, or rather defining, what my voice is in terms of standing up for people and when it actually counts. You know, I remember my mother always used to try and encourage me, like, yo, go to church, do this and that, and I didn't believe in it all. I was like, what's the point? You know. And it heightened, I think my unbelief heightened the time she died, because I remember choirs came home and they would sing and pray and everything, but she still died. And to me, I was like, all of these people came with all of that faith, and it still didn't save my mom. So what's the point? You know, so I kept I started wearing all black all the time. Well, I know I'm dressed in all black right now, but
you became emo.
It was for a specific reason. I was very martyred in my emotions and so forth. So at that time, I decided not to speak. Right, so I didn't know what to say. You know, be it in character or in actual words, and I more or less just said, you know what, if that could happen to my mom, maybe I'm next. And I had no sense of purpose, and so on and so forth. So I didn't know what to speak for, even.
Okay, so you've mentioned getting saved at 18, right? So this was a year of both tragedy and then you meeting God. Okay, so I want you to explain how at that point your newfound relationship with God influenced how you started using your voice, and then if you can also then take us into you discovering that, hey, like, okay, finding my voice isn't just about me speaking up for myself and, you know, expressing myself in my character and all that, which I love that you say that, because I think sometimes we think using our voice is just using our outspoken, but like, no, the way you act, the way you carry yourself is still you using your voice, right? Finding your voice, using your voice. So, how did you then discover that, oh, okay, I actually have a gift? Like, this God that I've now started believing in, that I'm now building this relationship with, has gifted me with this unique voice that I can use.
Okay. a series of things happened at the time. I remember encountering weird things and I didn't know what could explain it, so I did like a search. I went through, I think, every religious book existent. You know, I read excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita. I read Buddhism, because I started with these things because they were more familiar to like the trainings I had and so forth. Yeah, so I started with these things and I'm like, okay, maybe they might explain a couple of things, and they were not sufficient. And then I was like, the last place I want to go to is the Bible. So let me start with the Quran. So I read the Quran.
Wow.
I read the Quran and I was like, interesting enough, the Quran speaks about Jesus a lot, right? Why is it pointing me to the Bible? Okay, cool. I'll read the Bible. I remember reading the Bible, and some of the encounters I had, which I had never had before, were explained in the Word. I remember reading the story of Moses, and I resonated with that so much because Moses was meant to speak for his people, and he had a speech impediment, and he encountered a burning bush that spoke to him. And everybody, you know, if you're into a lot of like the black culture and so forth, there was a point where I also like traveled to the States and everything, so chilling with black folks really messed me up a bit. No offense to any black folks. Yeah, but you know, when they say things like burning bush, they're referring to like weed and so forth. So it was very funny. It was a funny correlation. But I resonated with Moses mainly because he needed to speak for his people, and God was telling him to speak. And God knew he stammers. This guy stammers. But I'm gonna use it.
Yeah.
And I was like, interesting. I don't stammer, but maybe the speech impediment is in maybe me defining myself by the traumas I've been through, right? Losing my dad and losing my mom. The reason why I wore all black was mainly because I just wanted to carry grief with me. I was like, this is who I am. And I had
grief is who I am.
Grief is who I am. And what's amazing is that there's always providence for something you set your mind to. That's what I've realized. So I had enough black clothes, like, even till today. But I got a bit of color. I can at least promise I got a bit of color in my wardrobe. Yeah. That's all I'll say.
Okay. So how did you? Was it someone that noticed it? Was it a family member, a teacher, somebody that said, "Hey, like, you have this captivating sound in your voice," that sparked this? Or did you see something that made you, like, tell us about that story? How did being a voice artist even become a thing to you?
So moving along from Moses, what began to happen was I started asking the question, okay, what do you want me to speak for? And so forth. And then next thing I know, I was writing. Right, so I was writing. I remember I used to, because I've been into like the art form of rapping for as long as I can remember. I think I was taking it back to when I was 6. I would recite Tupac lyrics because my uncles used to like playing Tupac in the house. Now, if you're 6 and you're listening to Tupac, that's probably not a good idea because it fills you with all these ideas and whatnot. And then, you know, years later, people like 50 Cent and Eminem became famous. So, you know, I was very receptive to hearing and capturing the lyrics. Like, words mattered to me, you know, even from a young age. So by the time I now started, and that's what's funny, it's not until I started digging deeper into like the faith and then eventually getting saved did I even know I could write. For the longest time, if the furthest I could write in terms of lyrics was someone else's lyrics, because my friends noticed that you know the words,
right for us,
so that we also know what they're saying. You know, so that's the furthest I would go. So the first time that I ever explored it to myself was after I got saved. It's like God now started telling me, now I need you to speak for something. And then now I found myself writing. And then next thing I knew, because that was like last year of high school. So what used to happen was, by some randomness, my friends would hear me like more or less like harsh whisper what I'm writing, and I would think of writing it in rhyme. So they're like, "Oh, guy, you rap also?" I'm like, huh? No, man, I'm just writing stuff. No, and then this, that, and the third. Next thing I know, I'm involved in rap battles, like interclass rap battles, and they're putting me in the forefront. No, this guy, this is our guy. He's going to destroy you guys. So that's where the name initially came from.
Dexter.
It was to destroy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other rappers. Then I discovered that Dexter in Italian is Destro. Destro in English is Dexter. So I was like, it's my name.
Yeah. Nice.
It's my name. It had a very negative connotation. We turned it to, hey, look, it's my name now. You know, we're saved. It's been redeemed. Okay. And then that's from writing to being in rap battles to writing speeches and reciting them in front of the whole school.
Nice.
You know, every closing day or important event, I was the one they asked to speak to the people, to a point where people even started saying, you know, one day you're going to be president. I don't know about politics. And which is funny because I ended up doing political science and communication at UNZA. So even then they were still like, you sure?
Yes,
You don't want politics?
This is the path.
I'm like, look, I'm passionate about speaking for things. Doesn't mean I should be a politician. If by that definition, then everyone should be a politician. You know, if they have a strong opinion on something, then they should start a ministry, you know. So or they should open a branch under the local government. You know, so starting to write and then being in these situations more or less like start growing the muscle to be more confident to speak. And by the time I could do speeches, I realized, I couldn't do this before I got saved. And then it just, because I remember I used to read Romans 8:8 where he works out all things. So it started to feel like even though I was rap battling and then I was doing speeches, he was working out all things to help me realize that I actually need you to speak. People get inspired by this.
Nice.
You know, I still receive inboxes from people who were like in 8th grade, the time I was in 12th grade, telling me that they remember what I said.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow.
Wow.
Like if you didn't say something, I would have committed suicide that day.
Wow.
And it brought like a new perspective to speaking and using my voice, because that impact was truly something. And then I started being mentored, you know, to grow further in the faith. And that's when I was told, no, stop meditating. I know you want to train, but stop it. And so forth. Yeah. And then years later, I started getting to know some other mentors. Kamiza, Chilulemba, all became my mentors. They're like big brothers to me. And there are people who've gone ahead of me in utilizing their voice, and they've found ways to monetize that. You know, so that's how I also entered into like voice acting and doing voiceovers for the corporate industry. You know, there's a long story there as well, but I've just like summated it to more or less show how being saved got me to discover, to discover that actually my voice is meant to be used for something, from a kid who was timid to someone who's, you know, expressive.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that background. So have you had any experience where you've had a conflict with your faith as it pertains directly to your work in this industry? Because you've told me the background of how it's so important to you to use your voice for things that you believe in. So important to you to use your words the way they're supposed to be used, in a way that is uplifting and building people up, and I get that vibe from you. So I'm curious, like, have you had an instance where maybe a client needs some work done and they're going in this specific direction and you're just like, do I really see myself in the sound booth saying this or promoting this?
Fortunately, no.
Nice.
Fortunately, no. I don't think so, actually. Now that I think about it, I've never had the opportunity to, which is, I would say, very fortunate. I think there's in the world they call it law of attraction. I call it God's natural order of things, right? Where you sow your seeds is where you reap from.
Yeah.
So when you sow in righteousness, you reap in righteousness. The devil, this is why it's called tempting, right? The devil can only tempt you with what he's observed. So if you're not walking upright, or you're not walking in the right paths, right? He can't tempt you. He will attempt to distract you, but he can't necessarily tempt you, because the temptation has to deal directly with what is an innate desire, right? Or at least that's what I believe. So I've never had the opportunity to be tempted in that way, where they come with a lot of money. Boom. We just want you to say this way. Promote this. It's only going to be 30 seconds of your time, and you walk away with $1 million. No, that's never happened. So yeah, God has been very faithful in the way that I've done this work. So, but I have heard people have undergone that, and I'm like, wow.
When rubber hits the road, what you gonna do?
Oh. They usually tell us no, but you see that they bought a new Benz, so you're like, you said no. You said, oh, okay.
Nice.
You said no. All right. Cool.
Okay, on
we'll
the flip
take
side, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
What would you say, looking at all the projects you've done, all the work you've done, has been the one that's connected you to your faith the most?
The one that's connected me to my faith the most.
Yeah.
I think it was doing voices in the church, actually. I think that culminated into being in a play. Yeah. I was even asking about it earlier. I was like, when are we gonna do that play again? You know, because playing a character also helped me realize that, oh, okay, so there's a different way for me to speak as well. I can speak as an actor, right? So that helped me realize that, because the character was such a strong character that people started identifying me as the character. When they would see me, oh, Caiaphas.
Yeah. Like, I am not him.
I'm black.
Yeah.
It's just a character, you know.
And I guess that happens to a lot of actors and actresses.
It does. Like, you know, when you say Barker Haynes, you have a face already. You know that guy. Yeah. You know, he played a cop in Sarafina, but it wasn't that memorable. But when he played Barker Haynes in Isidingo, he's Barker Haynes. When I see him, he's Barker Haynes. Yeah. You know, so that just also goes to show the power of speaking, you know, and speaking in that art form of acting. You're still using your voice, you know. You as a being is a voice, you know. So, or at least that's how I like to look at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I haven't necessarily like faced those challenges, but on the flip side, getting to play a character who was so historic to salvation as a whole, for me it brought me closer, because I had to study him. I had to do a bit of research into the character just to bring him out more, to honor the character. You know, you had to play it. You had to play it to the T. Nice. You know, it never conflicted me, but it did bring a different perspective, and it helped me appreciate salvation more. That wow, God was working out all these things so that I could enjoy being propitiated today. You know? And I know that's like a big word, but you know, so that I could be brought back into the sheepfold today. You know, so for me, it gave me that kind of like eternal perspective, and it also helped me redefine my perspective on where I was at the time. Because at the time, unbeknownst to many, because you know we show up to church and everything, I was going through some intense struggles, balancing between school and, you know, fending for myself. You know, being orphaned. My guardians are teachers, so it's not like they make enough to like support me. So having now also entered like into the like voiceover industry and everything, I started to see a bit of money. Then there was a period where I wasn't. So now you're like, oh Lord,
hustling.
You know, when you know I looked very hungry, but people will say, I've gained weight. No, I'm full now. So, because I was very hungry. Anyway, but continuing to show up and just committing to showing up helped me understand that I might be going through this now for a season, but God is working on something, and He's working on me. The more that I keep showing up, something gonna happen. So what that birthed was actually being in the play actually birthed my relationship with Camisa. And then Camisa put me on some things, and next thing you know, I'm not hungry anymore. That's the long short.
Nice, the long short of it all. Nice. Okay, as we wrap up the conversation, like I said in the beginning, I could listen to you all day. Not only are you captivating in the sound of your voice, but you're also really smart. And so when you speak, it's not like, what is he saying? It's like you want to listen. And I can see that that's something that you are continuing to grow in and continuing to use for God's glory. So as we just conclude this, someone out there listening, maybe they do have the gift that you have, and they've got this amazing sounding voice and they can use it in a lot of different ways, or maybe they don't, but they're like that 6-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old you that was timid, that kind of lost their sense of self because of stuff they went through in life, or their voice was suppressed for whatever reason, what word of encouragement would you have to that person in not just finding their voice, but also learning how to use their voice, both them speaking out loud and also the character thing that you mentioned earlier?
I guess the biggest thing I can tell anyone out there is understand what you're responsible for and what you're accountable for, and have people that hold you to the standard of both. I think over the years for me, having mentors and having people that held me accountable kept me committed, because life lives. Life lives, and it lives in very different, sometimes awkward ways where you can even be shaken in your faith. But having that solid community around you is also a testament to God having told me, I started out saying that I'm an orphan and that I was orphaned, but Him having surrounded me with people that had not only my best interest but His best interest for me is what helped shape me. So identify and have those people around you, and then on a personal level, just dig deep into the scriptures. There's a powerful story being told in the scripture that you will actually even be shocked how it tells your story at the same time. I think to not like say too much. That's what I can say. On a personal level, stay seeking the Lord. Seek ye the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. Commit your ways unto Him, and He will firmly establish you. That's Matthew 6:3 and Proverbs 16:3. So that's pretty much about on a personal level. And then outwardly have that community, be it friends or family, that hold you accountable and help you understand what your responsibility is. It helps mold purpose and character.
Nice. Oh, Destro. Now I know the background of the name, so I like it just a little bit more.
Thank you.
Thanks for making the time to be here, for not just sharing your experiences, but also sharing your voice, sharing, your opinions about how you can use your gifts for the kingdom of God, and also just your heart for people, your heart to use your voice for things that matter. I think that's my biggest takeaway today in sitting here with you. And for all the famous warriors out there, finding your voice is important. Finding your voice is worth the fight. And like I always say, our chance to fight is a privilege, and you finding your voice are definitely worth the fight.